The scream tore through the fog like a dagger, high and sharp, echoing off the iron rails that stretched endlessly through the forest. The conductor's hat lay abandoned in the mud, soaked and forgotten, a grotesque splash of crimson creeping up its brim. Somewhere in the distance, the whistle blew again, not mechanical, not steam-driven, but something guttural, pained, alive. It started a week ago, or maybe it never stopped. Mason Hill was a seasoned engineer, a man of the rails for 27 years. He'd seen derailments, mechanical failures, drunken fights, even suicides, but never anything like the 1245. He first heard about it from Eddie, a spooked freight hauler with hollow eyes and trembling hands. "Don't ride the tracks past Black Hollow after midnight," Eddie warned, staring at Mason with glassy intensity. "You hear that horn, and you stop, you get out, and you pray. You never try to beat it. Never." Of course, Mason laughed it off. Railroad men were full of tall tales and ghost stories, especially around small towns like Marlowe. But when the radio static began to speak in garbled, otherworldly voices and conductors started disappearing without a trace, even Mason felt something shift in the air, something ancient. Tuesday, 12:32 a.m. Fog as thick as soup swallowed the tracks outside Marlowe Station. Mason stood beside his freighter, alone but for the hum of the engine. He stared into the woods beyond, unease creeping along his spine like the chill in the air. The trees were too still. The wind had stopped. And then he heard it, a distant whistle, mournful and long. The hairs on his arms stood up. He checked the schedule. No trains due until dawn. He flipped on a radio. "Dispatch, this is 432 westbound. I just heard a train horn east of Black Hollow. You got eyes on anything moving that way?" The response was static, followed by a whisper. Not a voice, a whisper, and then the sound of a child laughing. He dropped the radio. The rails began to hum. First a subtle tremble, like the earth itself holding its breath. Then a vibration, growing in rhythm. And suddenly from the trees it emerged. The train was a rusted behemoth, decades out of time, covered in soot and blood-streaked steel. Its windows were shattered or fogged over with frost, and the headlight pulsed red, not yellow. Inside, silhouettes moved, jerky and unnatural. Some crawled along the ceilings. Others scratched at the windows. One pressed a face to the glass, no eyes, just empty sockets and a mouth too wide, grinning. It screamed past without slowing, the air around it shimmering like heat waves, though the night was freezing. Mason stumbled back, nearly falling into the gravel, heart pounding like a drum in a funeral march. The wind in its wake carried whispers and dozens of voices, some human, some not. All pleading. Then it was gone. Silence returned like a suffocating blanket. The next day, Mason found out a commuter train had gone missing on the same stretch the night before. No bodies, no wreckage, just vanished, like the rails had swallowed it whole. Curiosity became obsession. He spent days researching, hunting down old rail legends, newspaper clippings, and dispatch records. It all pointed to one date, June 3rd, 1957. That night, a passenger train known as the Northern Belle derailed outside Black Hollow. 76 people died. Official reports blamed brake failure, but local stories told of a conductor who'd lost his mind, hearing voices from the tracks, driving faster and faster into the dark. The bodies weren't buried. They disappeared. Mason found a photograph taken moments before the Belle departed. In the background stood a tall man in a conductor's uniform. His face was pale, his mouth open in what might have been a smile or a scream. No one on the manifest matched him. And his image appeared again and again in old photos from other disasters, always near the train. They called him the Man in Black. On Friday, Mason made a decision. He would ride the 1245. He told no one. Packed a recorder, holy water, a flare gun, and his grandfather's revolver. He parked his car by the abandoned tracks near Black Hollow and waited. 12:44 a.m. Fog rolled in. The trees whispered. 12:45. The ground trembled. The whistle screamed. And the unstoppable ghost train arrived. This time it slowed. Just enough. A door creaked open. A light flickered inside, revealing decaying seats and rusted poles, warped advertisements from the 50s peeling off the walls. Mason stepped in. The door shut. The train lurched forward. There were no passengers at first. Just an eerie hum, the flicker of dying lights. Then, one by one, they appeared. A woman in a blood-stained dress clutching a teddy bear. A man in a business suit with half his head caved in. A child with no eyes, giggling. They didn't move, just stared. He pressed record. "My name is Mason Hill. I boarded the ghost train. I'm not sure if I'll get off. If someone finds this, burn the tracks. Salt the ground. It doesn't want witnesses." The train passed through impossible places. A city on fire, a frozen wasteland, a desert with skies of purple. Mason saw wreckage from different eras outside the windows. Broken planes, horse-drawn wagons, ships half buried in sand. Time didn't exist here. The conductor entered the car. He was tall, impossibly thin, with a face like melting wax. His cap read Engineer of Souls. In one hand he held a lantern filled with swirling shadows. The other held a pocket watch ticking backward. "Ticket, please." Mason raised the gun. The conductor laughed. "You're already here. There's no getting off." He fired. The bullet hit the lantern. Shadows burst out, shrieking. Passengers screamed. The train derailed, or tried to, but instead of crashing, it twisted in midair, spinning into darkness. Mason awoke in his car, parked beside the tracks. Drenched in sweat, clutching the recorder. It was morning. Birds chirped. Sunlight poured through the trees. He played the tape. Whispers. Screams. The conductor's voice. "There's no getting off." He turned to the road and froze. A rusted train sat on the parallel track, covered in soot. Doors open. No engine running. Windows dark. The same face stared at him from every window. His own. A week later, Mason disappeared. The 12:45 still rolls through Black Hollow. They say you can hear it if you're near the tracks after midnight. A whistle, a whisper, and the sound of something old and hungry just beneath the earth. And if you see the man in black, don't get on. Don't wave. Don't even look. Because once you do, the train won't stop. Not for you. Not for anyone.